started. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Today, we are reviewing the work from our third sprint in our second work cycle of 2025, which officially, the sprint ran from May 14th to June 3rd. This is our last sprint of the work cycle, and it's also our second work cycle where we've just been sort of continuing on without a break, which has been, I think, really amazing in terms of forward progress and momentum. It has, I think, led to some challenges with local work, which we'll hear about a little bit more in detail today. However, to focus on our goals and what we accomplished, one of our main goals during this sprint was to demo the publishing workflow from Comet to our prototype daylight-based discovery layer, ADRL Lite. And what this meant was just a lot of focus on API development and integration, but also some continued progress on core Comet functionality. We have some really exciting ADRL Lite updates to share with you today, which we're really looking forward to showing. Another major goal of this sprint was to get both the new QA and sandbox environments up and running. We also spent some time ironing out some AWS-related issues. And all of these are just really important steps towards hardening the infrastructure as we prepare to go into production. And especially the QA environment is really going to help us test and validate new features much easier than we have been able to do in the past moving forward. So I'm hoping I didn't miss anything. Michael, please chime in if I did. But I'm very excited to turn it over to Elisa and Chris from the Daylight team to start us off.
Hello, my name is Elisa Pierce from UCSB. As we just mentioned, we are on the Daylight team. We've been building and showing everybody these Daylight components. So I'm going to share my screen here. We've been talking about APIs. So this is an API endpoint. I wanted to start here because this is what we've been waiting for. This is all of that data that is coming from our collection. And what we can now do is integrate that with our Daylight components. So again, here's our ADRL Lite demo. It's a mimic of a page in our example of usage for Daylight components. I've shown you these components before, but now when I use these components, what comes back is actual items in our collections. And so this is such a great progression in our progress, because what this unlocks will be those big decisions, those little decisions, those performance enhancements, so that we can really deliver a great result to our users. And so I've already started to hook up some of the components, getting them working together, and made a lot of progress here. So I'm very excited about that. But like I was just mentioning, this unlocks a lot of questions like, what should we do? What should we show? How can we design this user experience using Daylight components? And we have also thought about a solution for that. So I'm going to kick it over to Chris, who's going to share some of the development in a Figma platform. Chris, I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Yeah, thank you, Elisa, so much. So yeah, as Elisa was saying, we've made some progress in utilizing the UI UX design platform Figma. To initially, it was just for us to bring some of like the UI UX foundation to our work in Daylight, catch it up with the development work. But now we really see the work that we've done here, as almost something that can be part of the right open source package of utilizing the Daylight component library as like a starter UI UX kit for anybody who wants to kind of utilize the tools for the dev side as well and take it anyway. But to catch you up on where we were last in our sprint update, I was just beginning to complete our atomic design component library. So basically building out all of the little components and their various uh, presentations or state changes in our UI, and kind of building those larger, as atomic design principles refer to as molecules. So you'll see some familiarity with things that have been demoed in the past and what was in the ADRL Lite. And then from there, we were able to build the larger pages with these molecules, or the organisms as they're called in atomic design. And this all can really make a difference in terms of, as Elisa was saying, what is the expected behavior? What questions just don't come up when we're just coding the thing, as opposed to when you try to move through the thing as a user. And one of the great features that Figma provides is that when you kind of bring together those tinier components, build your pages, you can actually create what's called a Figma prototype. And that allows you to create a semi-interactive environment of your Figma components that could begin to reflect the actual spaces that we expect users to be in. And so what's very fun about this is that we eventually can use this to begin to project the user journeys that we expect users to take at some point, all the different interaction pieces that we have been thinking about on the development side, but just aren't totally fleshing out in terms of what happens when you click into this, what should show at this point, should there be a way to get back to the original page we had started on. So we now have this pretty much at a state where we can share this out as like a package. In fact, UC San Diego has already brought this entire Figma file into their Figma workspace to begin to continue to iterate on, adapt, bring into brand guidelines, etc. And I imagine we might even start evolving some of the components in here just on the Surfliner side. But what's so helpful is that this also gives you another platform to communicate with other stakeholders in an effective way. And what I love about the Figma prototype is it's very easy. This link is shareable. I'll drop it in the chat just after I finish up here. But when you want to get really meaningful feedback from stakeholders on the things that you're building, this is a great platform for that, as I was saying. And then it's so easy to just add a comment and, indicate like, shouldn't this look disabled when we reach the end of it, for example, or something like that. And these comments will kind of come back into us, or there will be like an email or a notification to us. And then we can begin to think, oh, of course, like there should be some styling to indicate that, or we need to bring that into the core functionality of it. So again, it's just kind of one of those you can get your hands on it type of ways to communicate to stakeholders, get feedback from other users. Sometimes we at UC San Diego will use Figma prototypes to mimic user journeys that users themselves can give feedback on. And it's just great when, right, you're in this stage of trying to get the other pieces up and running before you can actually stage the thing. The Figma prototype has been super helpful in that space. And so we're excited that it can be part of the other generative aspects of the Daylight project and overall the Surfliner products there. So I'll drop the link to that prototype in a second. But yeah, that's what I had to share from the Daylight design side of things.
Ooh, thank you, Chris. That was very exciting to see. I love that comment component. That is going to be such a great tool to be able to get that feedback on those little tiny questions that always seem to come up in the front end. David, I believe you're up next. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to talk a little bit more about the ADR Lite backend and the API where Elisa showed you some search results. So we worked with Juliana at UC San Diego to figure out who's a DBA there, to figure out the feasibility of implementing the APIs without a Solr index, and it looks like that's going to work just fine. So we have our basic search endpoint working and also basic object retrieval endpoint working. There are next steps will be things like getting the thumbnails and the links to images and downloadable files in there, getting the information needed for those what we call faceted search. So those things you were seeing on the left-hand side where it would say, how many of these search results are of what genre or what subject or whatever. But now that we have like the basic kind of the core infrastructure of the ADR Lite backend worked out, I think those things should fall into place pretty quickly. So we're looking forward to getting those in. Otherwise, let's see. So putting my Comet tech lead hat on, as Chrissy said, we continued with essential Comet work, implementing some of the smaller features that we still consider critical, working through some more bugs. There's not a lot to demo there, partly because of the ongoing infrastructure work, setting up the QA and sandbox environments, and as Chrissy said, ironing out some of the wrinkles in our AWS Amazon Web Service setup here at UC Santa Barbara, which is where we're hosting those QA environments. But I think we have those really close to completion now, and I'm also really glad that we were discovering these things now rather than later in production. So looking forward during the break and early in the next work cycle to getting a lot of those new features and bug fixes deployed and QA'd. We were a little held up in some of the common infrastructure work by and really some of the work across the board by some external factors. As Chrissy said, we no longer have we're no longer working sort of one cycle on, one cycle off, which means that we're all trying to do our local work at the same time we're doing Surfliner work. So I know at UC Santa Barbara we still have some ongoing work with our AV holdings, the DAR and ADP, and I can remember what some of the letters stand for, but Chrissy could probably remember what they actually all stand for. Directory of American Historical Recordings, is that DAR? Discography of American Historical Recordings. And American Discography Project?
Yes, and they're the same site. It's just names from various time periods of it. But I'm happy to drop the link into the chat if you're not aware of this resource. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It's a high priority resource that's also been hit hard by the shenanigans in Washington, D.C. with grants and so on. And so we've had to step in a little bit there, which has pulled particularly Michael Craig and a little bit Alex off of Surfliner infrastructure and DevOps work. And I know UC San Diego has been dealing a lot with AI harvester bots, and I think Michael is going to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Thanks, David. It's a perfect segue into unplanned work. So as you mentioned, kind of with those work cycle cadence changes, we often have to balance sort of planned work on both the Surfliner scale and local work. I think this sprint was particularly tough with the unplanned sort of outages that were sort of caused by what we're sort of broadly classifying as sort of AI crawler traffic, although that traffic is so difficult to disambiguate that we're sort of unable to say that that's the root cause. But the 300,000 queries an hour, something like that, generally was enough to create essentially a denial of service. And so we had to pivot very quickly to remediate that. And that really meant a lot of folks had to get pulled to go take care of that. And you might just think that that would be very infrastructure-centric folks or our operations team, but something of this scale impacts different teams too, right? So our digital experience teams and sort of even bringing it up and surfacing it in local sprint work to try and give people a feel for the breadth and scope of the problems. The team did an amazing job at getting us through that. It's something that the project, I think, Surfliner project will be tracking long-term because it won't be something that goes away. So just definitely a great example of something that might seem innocuous and have a pretty simple, straightforward solution, but absolutely doesn't, but also absolutely needs to be addressed. So again, I think that just want to give a shout out to the team and everyone that was involved in getting us through that. You did an amazing job at that and also balancing forward progress in the sprint. So I know everyone is extremely grateful for your contributions there.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Chrissy.
I was just going to second that. I mean, and especially to say, I think this change in cadence has been so amazing on the Surfliner side. But I think our local teams are still trying to figure out how to do both things at the same time. And so I want to just second that shout out. Y'all are amazing and you're doing amazing work. And we are just so proud of you and so grateful for all your contributions.
Yeah, and from the Surfliner side, I mean, I think, everything we learn on this local stuff feeds back into Surfliner. So, everything UC San Diego has been working on with bot mitigation are lessons that we are going to need to apply to Surfliner going forward. I mean, both obviously for like the discovery platforms like ADRL Lite or and the future UC Santa Barbara Discovery platform, but also for pretty much anything outward facing. Those are the discovery platforms tend to be kind of bot traps because they have so many links that can be clicked and so many different things that can be loaded and so many pages. But it also affects relatively smaller sites like Spotlight for digital exhibits and other things. So all of these things are things that we're all going to have to deal with, all of us in the digital library space. And even the work that we've been doing here on DAR, a lot of that is again feeds into it's like lessons learned about our AWS infrastructure and AWS database architecture and that kind of thing, which we can apply in the future.
So I think that's it from us in terms of official presentations. I do just want to mention that although we are having these sort of continuous work cycles now, we are still giving ourselves breaks. So after this sprint, we do have a couple of week buffer period. And so we'll be kicking off our next work cycle on the 18th of June. In the meantime, we do have we are still continuing on with our end of work cycle update. Sorry, I tripped over my tongue there a little bit. For stakeholders. So our next one is scheduled on June 11th at 11 a.m. So I hope all of you will join us for there too, where we can kind of pull together and summarize everything that was accomplished. Yeah, does anyone have any questions or comments you want to share with the team? I see that Tim is giving a shout out to UCLA in the chat for the assist with the bots. And that is just amazing to see all of the UC libraries working together in this way.
Yep, Chrissy, I did want to make sure to give them a shout out. They were amazing in their collaborative approach to that and sharing their prior art and their experience. And so I definitely look forward to working with them in the future and then sharing that more broadly. But they were particularly amazing at a time when we really needed some assistance, and they were awesome. So thank you, Tim, for that reminder.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, and this is what I am so grateful for the Surfliner team. I mean, like Chris, what you shared, I'm like, oh, so exciting for, prepping us to go into our our next large scale design phase with our stakeholders. And I just think it's so wonderful to have this team together where we can, really pull in all of our different experiences and strengths. And it really is an amazing team, and you all should be so proud of yourself. But now I really will stop talking in case there are any questions from all of you who have joined us today. All right, I have counted to 11 in my head. I want to thank all of our stakeholders who took the time to join us today. We do all of this for you and for our users, and so we're really grateful to have your time. And Michael, if you want to stop the recording.